Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxim Smith, and this is the White Pill Podcast. But today, it's very, very strange how these public schools, aka government schools, had come into existence and how nobody seemed to expect there to be any sorts of indoctrination from it. Because whenever the government tries to create an institution, especially an institution where kids go through and try to be educated, I feel like people should expect there to be some sort of indoctrination, at least on some level, because the government's going to try to put themselves in a good light. And that is kind of the case. But I have terrible experiences from public schools, seeing some crazy stuff. Black Lives Matter shirts. My English teacher wore a Black Lives Matter shirt, and my principal wore a Black Lives Matter shirt, which I think if you actually believe in anything, you look at the Black Lives Matter organization, and before they took it down on their website, it basically showed how they are Marxist and they are against the nuclear family, and they like putting people in racial categories just because they think that's the right thing to do, even though it's clearly not. And anyone who's against the nuclear family is against me because families, I mean, they're not just against me, they're against all families across the world, or at least in the United States, for trying to go against families. What the heck? There's no reason to be against families. That's the main point, and that's the only reason why I have a problem with it. And the fact that a lot of what happened last summer with the rioting from that group of people, I mean, how I can't believe anybody likes them anymore. But of course, there's still people that are indoctrinated because of education to like those riots, support the rioting, and to support people who don't support them and who actually don't like them at all. Especially if you're white, by the way. They don't like you. But I emailed my school. I no longer go there, I'm homeschooled now. But this was just a couple months ago. This was after the rioting, or just kind of at the very end of it in August. And it was going to South High School in Denver, Colorado, which I'm fine with saying the name because I don't go there anymore. And it's important that people know exactly where this is happening, exactly where the indoctrination is coming from. But I decided to email Denver Public Schools curriculum and instruction team to find out more about the curriculum. And I'm trying to get the whole high school curriculum right now, but they're saying that it belongs to they actually get it from a private company. It's not widely distributed to all public schools. They get it from a private company, which I find a bit weird. And they are really not trying to give it to me at all, which shows to me that they have some stuff in it that they're trying to hide. But they were they gave me some of the curriculum, which was good because I wanted at least to know some of the stuff that was in the high school curriculum. And I have it right here. I'll put it right now up on screen. Unit 5, Connections between the Civil Rights Movement and the Modern Social Justice Movements, including BLM. Resources: We Are the Radical Monarchs, documentary film from PBS. What Black Lives Matter and the Black Panthers Have in Common, NPR interview. Unit 6, The Fight for Equality also includes articles about BLM using the ABC Clio database and resources from Facing History and Ourselves on the following topics. One thing I have to say very quickly, though, is that this is in history class, by the way. So if you actually wanted your kid to learn anything in history class, this is what they're learning instead. They're learning about We Are the Radical Monarchs, what Black Lives Matter and the Black Panthers have in common, Facing Ferguson, Media and Literacy in BLM, National Anthem Protest, History of BLM. The unit also includes other open source resources, BBC, NBA, and the role of sports in the discussion on racism. Why is this being brought up to kids? Why is racism being brought up to kids? Especially in replace for a proper education. That makes no sense. Because I know that if it was a couple generations back, at the beginning of high school, no one would have thought about racism. It's like it didn't even matter. And it wasn't in any discussions at all. Ethnic and gender studies also includes articles about BLM using the ABC Clio database in particular the New Millennium Time Period section. And it talks about the Black Lives Matter and Activist Movement, ADL article, and brings up the some more articles as well about it. But they did say, thanks for reaching out. The DPS High School Social Studies curriculum incorporates Black Lives Matter in a number of different places and courses. Here are some of these specific examples. We would recommend that you connect directly with your social studies teacher about ways the conversations about race and equity show up in day-to-day instruction. And they already do show up in day-to-day instruction. I came in contact with a sophomore that goes to that same school, and he is in U.S. history class. He said that there's actually nothing in there that's about current U.S. history. It's about this same stuff. Black Lives Matter, affirmative action, all of this stuff. It's about all of that. So if you want to think, at this point, if you think that your children are getting a good education in government schools, and this is happening at private schools, by the way. My sister has seen, they have a social justice class at her private school. So you have to remember that. It's happening in tons of different places, and you have to be involved in your child's education. Otherwise, they're going to be brainwashed into thinking that if they're white, they have to hate themselves, or if they're black, that the white people are keeping them down. That's really how it goes in schools, and that's what's being taught and replaced for real education, real things. How about we read classic books, or you just teach me math, or you just do your job? I mean, why is that something I have to ask of adults? Do your job? Since when has that become a weird thing to do? It makes no sense. Another thing I want to bring up is that I have, or had, 6 assistant principals at that one school. 6. Along with the principal. They were all assistant principals, which means they're getting paid more than the other teachers, which is fine. I mean, when teachers are teaching that and not doing their job, I think that they shouldn't get paid. I think that they should actually be fired. But they're not going to be fired because the administration backs them, right? The principal was wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. They all go along with it. They all have their own individual classes. They don't teach anything anymore. They're online, so kids aren't learning anything anyway because they're on their phones the whole time. But then, if the kids even were at school, they would be indoctrinated anyway. They're being indoctrinated to think a certain way. But another thing that happened, which I was shocked but not shocked at the same time because these people are brainwashed. My business teacher went on a rant against capitalism. He said he was comparing democratic socialism in, I think it was, forget which country he was specifically talking about, to capitalism in the United States. And he was basically like, oh, poverty rates here, even though the countries are two crazy different countries, they almost share nothing in common, and it's hard to compare those two, especially with population sizes and poverty rates and all of that. It all is completely different. And if you want to blame a lot of the differences between democratic socialism and capitalism, you can blame a lot of what happened or has happened in this country that is bad on the establishment. But instead, he's trying to turn it into a capitalism versus socialism argument, which is just ridiculous, especially to hear from a business teacher. Like, clearly this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This was another wild thing. My science teacher, out of nowhere, they would all do this. Out of nowhere, they would start talking about one specific thing that had nothing to do with what they were supposed to be teaching about. And I don't think it's because they were doing it for their own agenda. I think part of it was, but a lot of it is in the curriculum, which parents should be scared about. That this stuff, indoctrination, it's really happening. Really, really happening. And if you look at places, different countries where terrible things have happened in the past, you want to look at North Korea, the indoctrination there, or China. You want to look at any of those places, the indoctrination was, or still is, very, very crazy, very, very bad. And it makes people like the establishment or like certain things that turn them against other citizens so that the establishment can keep doing whatever it wants to while everyone's fighting with each other. That's what it always does. But my science teacher was talking about how we need a diversity not on the basis of skill or thought, opinion, or any of that. She decided to talk about how instead we need diversity on the basis of race in science. Because that matters for some reason. I don't care what race you are. It makes no sense to look at someone else's race. So yeah, diversity on the basis of race in science class when apparently my science teacher doesn't want to teach science. My math teacher decided to talk about her favorite politicians in the middle of class for no reason. AOC, the Obamas, for no reason. And I called her out because of it. I was like, what the heck? Stop teaching me this. I want to actually learn something in math. I'm not very good at math anyway. I want to learn something. But instead, oh, I love AOC. Oh, the Obamas. Oh my gosh. And then she was talking about some local kid that is very, very bad. He's on the school board as well. Not a good guy. So that's what she decided to talk about. My human geography teacher, which I'm not completely sure what that is exactly, but he was talking about how we need to talk about making sure that we communicate effectively together on the basis of pronouns. That we need to ask each other what our pronouns are, and we need to make sure that we don't violate someone else's safety because we don't go along with the pronoun thing. So he showed us a video, actually, which I'll try to put up. If I can't get the video, then I'll try to put up a picture of it, of the video that we were watching, was saying how we need to talk about pronouns and appreciate pronouns and all that stuff. And I get it. Maybe you have a friend who actually likes that, but they're not super crazy about politics. Okay, do whatever you want. But the problem I have with the pronouns thing is that it ties in with the Black Lives Matter stuff, ties in with all of that, ties in with more government, with more, well, with those Black Lives Matter people trying to get more power, trying to shut down opinions, trying to make sure that they're the dominant force and they're not the type of people you want to be in the position of power at all, because they're bad people. So we talked about that, and this one was funny. My human geography teacher had us take a bit of a survey, and he had us choose between who was culturally appropriating and who was not. And it was about two rappers. It was two black rappers and two white rappers. And one of the white rappers, by the way, was Eminem, who completely changed rap altogether. But then you're supposed to label the two white people as culturally appropriating. And that gave you points to the class. That helped you get a better grade. Just remember that. It's not like some useless survey with no grade in it. You're being graded on how brainwashed you are. I mean, which is just... Parents need to wake up and take all their kids out of school because it's a pile of trash, this education system. And it needs to be just like a pile of trash. Maybe you live in the country, right? When you have a pile of trash, you set it in a pile, you burn it, and then you're good to go. You don't have that pile of trash anymore. That's the problem with the public education system. It's a pile of trash. It needs to go up in flames. It needs to be gone. It's useless. It just indoctrinates kids and makes them terrible people, by the way. If you want more good people, get rid of the education system. It's not working. It's making people worse. And another thing that my human geography teacher talked about, or had us watch a video, an article about, was how the NBA was protesting for Black Lives Matter. In the middle of class. So it's like, okay, even though I wasn't completely sure about what that class was, because I'm not sure what human geography is, and everyone that I've asked doesn't seem to know either, but they have a lot of these fake classes at schools, by the way, and they get paid more because of it. And by the way, Denver Public Schools has gotten in trouble in the past. People have been arrested in the past because they had fake classes. At least that's what I've heard. I could be wrong. Um, the sources that I got this from could be wrong, but that's what I've heard. And I wouldn't be surprised because we have fake classes now so that they just get paid more and more. But in the middle class, this, what should be a grown man, but doesn't act like one, he's more of a boy, really, that decided to talk about not only preferred pronouns, but how the NBA is protesting for Black Lives Matter. Can you just teach me something? And this is what I want you guys to understand is that these people aren't teaching anything. There's no reason for your kids to be in public schools and in some private schools as well. But public school, it's all trash. There's no reason to be in there anymore. If you want to be in there, okay, be indoctrinated. Don't learn anything. You can do whatever you want. But if you want your kid to grow up, be smarter, be happier, and be kinder to people, and to be more virtuous, don't send them to public schools. Maybe you have one public school in your area which you're 100% sure is good, and okay, send them there. As long as they get a good education, learn something, send them there. But the majority, not good. Not good at all. I hope you guys took away something from this. There's also tons of stories. This is my personal experience with it. And I have a ton of experience. I've seen a ton of other news stories from across the country, even in Canada and Australia as well, where kids are being indoctrinated. I mean, there's this story from Christopher Rufo where kids, third graders, were being told that they need to talk about their race and their gender. It's crazy. Let me try to bring it up. Yeah, right here. He says, Scoop, a Cupertino elementary school forces third graders to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities, then rank themselves according to their power and privilege. I've obtained exclusive whistleblower documents inside the classroom. And I'll just read the first one out. There's like 10 other pages of this. First, the teacher told the 8 and 9-year-old students that they live in a dominant culture of white, middle-class, cisgender, educated, able-bodied Christians who created and maintained this culture in order to hold power and stay in power. And I'll read this next one too. Reading from this book is anti-racist. The teacher taught the children the theory of intersectionality and claimed that those with privilege have power over others, and that folks who do not benefit from their social identities have little to no privilege and power. That's just 2 bits of it. Only 2 bits of it. But there's a lot more. This is happening so much, incredibly often, way too often, and it shouldn't be happening at all. But thank you guys for watching. This is the White Pill Podcast, and I will see you guys on Friday.